Have you been considering making the move to Phoenix, Arizona, and you are considering a new build? Well, in today's video, I'm going over 5 major tips you need to keep in mind prior to picking a new home here in Arizona. If that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and keep on watching. Okay, so starting off with tip number 1 that you really need to consider if you're thinking about picking a new home, which is going to be, of course, location, 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 as it is with all homes, but very specifically with new homes. Not every lot is going to be a good lot for you to pick. That means, like, whenever you're searching for a home, especially if you can pick out your own specific lot, you want to definitely consider maybe doing a corner lot or a inner lot that is not backing a major road, or even if it's not a major road yet, will it ever be a major road? These are the type of things that you need to consider, because if it ever does become a major road, you're definitely going to affect your value. Also, when it comes to location, another really big one that people do not think of sometimes is like, what's going to be behind me at some point, or what's going to be in that area at some point. Something like, for example, where you have a dirt lot behind you and you have no idea what's going to be built behind you because that builder doesn't own that lot, right? That is something that could be concerning to people. Those type of things really, really impact value. So you definitely want to consider that. Another thing is like freeway, like how close are you to the freeway? A lot of people don't want to purchase a home that's super close to the freeway, whether or not you can see it, but if you can hear it, that is still a concern to people. So keep that in mind as well when it comes to location. And then another thing that I always hear about location is from some of my clients too, is just like power lines, industrial buildings nearby. One of the things that you guys hear me probably if you've been a part of this channel for a while or you've seen my videos in the past, I love, love, love the Verrado area. Something that kept me away from Verrado for so long was, one, there was nothing really there like 4 years ago, really. It's been completely exploded over the last couple years, but even on the way there was a lot of neighborhoods that weren't necessarily super desirable that I didn't want to have to drive through in order to get to my location. Since then, those areas have been sold. Like, one of the things was, there was a cow farm literally right there next to Verrado. And I personally am just not the biggest fan of that. I know a lot of people probably have no problems with that necessarily, but there's definitely going to be a group of people that do care about it. So that's one thing that I didn't like. And then there was just some older homes that didn't look like they were really well kept. And if I'm going to spend tons and tons of money on a home, I want the area to look nice, and I want and this might sound super materialistic, but honestly, I don't care. And I'm sure you guys can let me know down below in the comments if you totally agree with this or not. I want, when my friends and family come to visit me, or I have just have to drive home, it doesn't matter. I want to be able to see like a really nice area, and I want to take pride in my community. And I feel like if I have to drive through something that's not so nice, it can definitely impact the value of the home, but also just like what people think. And again, that might be super materialistic. You guys let me know down in the comments. Okay, and then this one is kind of a 2-for-1. So when it comes to new homes, not a lot of people know that you can do outside inspections. I think this is absolutely, I don't want to say mandatory, but I think it's really important. And the second part of that is a lot of people don't necessarily know that because they walk into these new homes without a realtor. Huge mistake, biggest mistake you could possibly make, honestly, when it comes to these new homes. You want to have a realtor present. Majority of the time, these new home communities are going to pay for, if you decide to pick me to help you. So of course you want free representation, right? That's an absolute no-brainer in my opinion. The second part of it is really that you don't want this agent to tell you, or not agent, I don't even know if they're technically agents. I'm sure that they have their license, but I think that they're inactive is how they can become like new home salespeople. Either way, that sales rep that's sitting in that office is representing the seller. Let me repeat that. The new home rep is representing the seller. They do not have your best interest at heart. And some people just don't know that. They're really counting on this sales rep to let them know everything that they're going to need to know or want to know. But that is just not the case. They're going to tell you everything that they're legally bound to tell you, but that's it, because they literally cannot tell you things that they don't need to tell you, because they can get themselves in trouble because they're representing the seller again. So that is why it's super important. A new home sales rep is never going to tell you that you can get an outside inspection. That is an absolute fact. So what an outside inspection is going to be where you hire your own separate inspector to come out to the property and make sure that everything is good as they say it is, right? So one of those times that you can do that is going to be pre-drywall inspection. So they're going to check out the plumbing, the wiring, all the framing, those kind of things. Kind of hard to come by where you can actually get that done, because not a lot of new homes are actually doing dirt builds, so you don't necessarily always have that opportunity. But if you do, I highly suggest it. When you're doing an inspection on a normal resale home, you can't like break down the walls and see all that stuff. So it's really cool and informative. And of course, once you put the drywall up, you can't just like, I mean, you could, I guess, but you're not probably gonna break all of that down to, you know, check out that stuff after the fact. So I think that's really important. And of course, a lot of people are like, don't they have to follow city code? Of course they have to follow city code. But just like any other construction project, things do slip. Always. Even sometimes I will be at, my dad is a fire sprinkler fitter. So he does industrial buildings, commercial buildings, and he makes sure that the piping for the fire sprinklers are good. He's been doing it for like 20 years. Anyways, long story short is he'll go into a building sometimes where it has like that industrial style where you can see inside, and he'll be like, oh, that's not to code. That's not to code. This isn't to code. Same thing can happen with new homes. So that's why I always say 2 is better than 1. I'm not going to be the person to tell you, oh, that electrical wire looks funky, because I'm not an electrician. I don't know what I wouldn't know what I was looking at, even if I had the opportunity to look at it beforehand. And that's why I say hire somebody out, of course, to do that. Same thing with the plumbing. The other opportunity you have to do this is going to be at the final stage. When you're doing your typical walkthrough, you can also hire an outside inspector to come in at that time and make sure that everything is looking good as well. I have had things come up that are absolutely crazy. For example, one of the times my client had an outside inspector come in, and one of the trusses in the ceiling or roof, I guess, or attic, again, obviously you can tell I'm not an inspector. So they had somebody come out, check it out. It was broken. Crazy. That is not something that is obviously probably safe at all, nor would it be a cheap fix, I was assuming. So we went ahead and asked for the builder to fix that, of course. So that was awesome. They didn't have to deal with that once their warranty on the builder ran out or anything like that. Like say they go to sell their house in 5 years, then that comes up and they're like, what the heck? That's crazy. Another thing that came up in my most recent inspection was a couple clients that actually purchased a new home with me for my YouTube channel. They purchased and they had an outside inspector come out, and he noticed that something with the AC, there was like a little blockage in the plumbing, so the AC wasn't actually operating to its full capacity. So they were able to get that fixed. Another thing was on the roof, the cap wasn't covering something that had to do with the dryer vent anyway, so if it rained, water would just come straight through. Again, of course, they have city regulations. They have all these rules and regulations, but doesn't mean that nothing is slipping through the cracks. And I know a lot of people, disclaimer, say that new homes aren't necessarily the way to go, things along those lines. Every home is gonna have its issues, no matter if it's old or new. Old homes have, trust me, just as many issues, if not more. The thing about new homes is obviously you have much more warranties, and we can get these things figured out in advance before you close on the house. Of course, that's what you want to do. And I think that spending the extra, let's say $450, depending on like location, size, all of those things, I would say it's definitely worth it for the people that weren't gonna have AC basically after they closed. They weren't gonna have proper venting situations, and then a broken truss. definitely worth the $450 in my opinion. Another thing you want to keep in mind is whether or not you're going to do that dirt build versus a spec home. Again, if you haven't seen my channel before, highly suggest one that you subscribe to my channel. I post videos every Monday at 5 p.m. so you guys can stay connected with me. It's all about Arizona. It's all about new homes, buying a home, all the fun things that have to do with relocating here. So like I said, subscribe to my channel, or go back once you're done with this video and watch some more. I have tons and tons of content outside of just new homes, but like city information. So definitely go back and check those out. But point being is a spec home is going to be a home where they have already, the builder has already picked out the specifics of that property. So for example, you know, let's say 5 years ago, it was really, really popular to go to a new home and pick out your lot, pick out all the flooring, all the fixtures, all the cabinets, all the colors, right? That was super, super popular. Builders have definitely swayed away from that, and that's where the spec home idea has come from, where they're typically about 3 months out from being completed. You cannot make any changes to them. Sometimes, I would say, like 1% of the time you can make small changes. It's just going to be dependent on at what stage they're at in that home. But most of the time, once they're, you know, at frame, they've already ordered cabinets, they've already ordered all the materials. So really things cannot be changed. But if you're not looking for a home that is already picked out, like all the specifics are already picked out, and you want to build that dream home that you're going to stay in for the next, let's say 20 years, a dirt home, a dirt lot is going to be the way to go for you. Granted, is it going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more money probably? Yes, most definitely. There's pros and cons to both. It's really hard to say one's better than the other. It's really going to be dependent on what you and your family are looking for. And those are the kind of things that I go over in these Zoom calls that I have with you guys, talking about locations, talking about timelines, talking about where to get the best deal, what the goals are for you and your family. That is what we go over. And by the end of the Zoom call, which sometimes takes anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much I want to talk or how many questions you guys have, you'll walk away feeling so much more enlightened. And whether you're at, you know, stage 1 of this process or stage 20 and you're going to be moving in a month, I highly suggest sitting down with me and just going over one of those so we can really set your guys' goal. The link for that is down below. But also, if you guys want to just reach out to me directly, my number and email are popping up. I would love to help you out. But all that to say, really, the spec home could be the best option for you, but the dirt home could be the best option for you as well. Spec homes right now are going to have the absolute most bang for your buck. Like if you're looking for a deal, a spec home is going to be the way to go. I mean, there's anywhere between, I've seen a home, granted it was, you know, maybe like a month or two ago. So, right, these deals don't always come up, but when they do, you want to be able to pounce. It was a 3-2-1 buy down and it was going to be 2.99 for the first year. Insane. Then it was 3.99 and then it was 4.99. So crazy good on a really nice, beautiful home in a great location. There's also been deals where it's like a 4.99, a 5.99. I've had clients get $20,000 off the price of the home. I've had clients get $25,000 in seller credits. Those homes that are in that phase where they're like a month or two from being done, the builder has to get those things off their books. And every single day that they're not, they're spending money, right? So those are the ones that are going to have the best deals versus the dirt homes where you're typically anywhere between some of them are 12 months out, right? 7 to 12 months out. You're going to have not as many deals to be had. Granted, could there be some deals? Of course. They're still offering concessions of some sort, whether it be, 5%, 6%, $20,000 in closing costs. They're still offering those, but there's not as much play, and that's not going to be where the best deals are. So either way, new homes are a great deal. That's why I sell so many of them, and I'm a huge advocate for them. It's really because of the great deals, but I mean, honestly, in Arizona, there's so many good deals to be had in general. We have about 18,000 homes available on the market where at least 40% of sellers are offering some sort of seller concessions. I've probably in the last 5 deals that I've gotten anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 in seller concessions, depending on the family situation. So definitely lots of good deals to be had in new builds or resale, but new homes just seem like that's where the best rate deals are gonna be. A question I get constantly with new homes is going to be the backyard. What's the backyard situation gonna look like? How does it work? How much is it gonna cost? All of those good questions, and those are definitely valid questions. New homes typically, like 95% of the time, are not going to come with anything in the backyard. So keep that in mind. That could be a large cost that you need to consider depending on how, fancy you want your backyard to be. Sometimes it still makes sense though. And that's what I always, try to educate my clients on. Granted, if you guys want a pool, new homes are not going to have a pool. You could potentially build a pool while your home is being built. Not always, but some builders do allow it. So keep that in mind, but it's obviously going to be harder to find, and it's just going to be the pool. It's not going to be all the rock or the grass or the turf or, the palm trees, whatever you guys want to do in your backyard. So if you're looking for that super, super luxurious backyard, definitely consider that in your price. But point being, most new builds are not going to have anything in the backyard. In the front yard, typically, I would say 90% of the time, they're going to have front yard landscaping. It's going to be very simple majority of the time, depending on what price point you guys are in. Once you get to those like 800 plus price points, sometimes they have nothing in the front yard, and you do have to consider that as a cost. That's again why it's really important to have a realtor come with you, because I can obviously inform you about that. But typically you're gonna have rock, a couple desert plants, maybe a boulder, maybe something like maybe a tree if you're lucky. But they really do keep the front yard super simple. Some builders do put rock in the backyard. So if you're looking for something like that, that could be a really good option just to kind of get you started. But again, if you're looking for like the pool in the super paradise, Arizona vacation backyard, maybe a resale home would be something to consider. Or if you really got a great deal on a new home, like you tell me, if I was able to save you $500 plus on your monthly payment on the new build versus the resale home, which one would you pick, knowing that the new home is not going to have a backyard? You guys let me know that down in the comments. But for me and for a lot of my clients, they end up thinking like, okay, actually I could consider a new home if I was going to be able to get, a really great deal on it. Another thing about Arizona that obviously is important if you're not from the state is we do have cinder block fencing. So every single house, unless you're in a 55 plus community where sometimes they don't have fencing, 99.9, I always leave a little room for error because you never know. There might be a builder that pops up that doesn't have backyard fencing, but 99.9% of the time, they're going to already have the cinder block fencing in place. That's not going to be an additional cost to you. That's something that I learned when I moved to Colorado. I was a licensed realtor there as well. And that's something I just didn't know because I had never lived anywhere else besides Arizona. So I'm super grateful that I was able to relocate and do that for myself and learn a lot more and then come back even more educated than ever. But point being, in Colorado, they don't have, fencing already in place. You have to pay for that outside of, once you move in. And I did not know that, but luckily, if you're moving to Arizona, that's not a cost you need to consider. Last but not least, something that kind of goes without saying is going to be read the contract. And again, I'm saying that as if you don't have a realtor and you're not using me. I'm of course going to read the contract. I'm going to, no matter what, ask my clients to read the contract too. But again, going back to the new home sales rep is not going to tell you everything that you need to know. So reading the contract, especially when you're making a huge, huge commitment, is super, super important. Sometimes I see builders trying to be super, super tricky with their verbiage and things along those lines. I've had people when it was, the Pandini, what do they say? Because you can only say certain words on YouTube, I guess, and they block you out. So, the panini. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, a couple years ago. Anyways, point being, during that time, there was a builder that was actually charging you additional funds if prices of lumber went up. I actually had a client go under contract on a house like that. Granted, they already knew in advance, so that's awesome, but I am sure there was a lot of upset people that went in there without an agent or a not so great agent, and they were screwed so bad because it was not a cheap place to live already. Another thing was, what did they say? Oh yeah, if you didn't get an appointment at the design gallery within 3 months, they required an additional deposit. And that's another thing I'll talk to you guys a little bit about earnest money at new homes, but they required an additional deposit because you couldn't get into the design gallery, even though they're the ones that dictate that. Stupid things like that, where it's like, if you don't read the contract and you're not aware of that in advance, it could be really upsetting when you get to that situation. Yeah, super upsetting for a lot of people that don't end up reading it, and then they get screwed, right? Of course, you're probably saying, well, of course you're supposed to read the contract, but sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Unfortunately, that is literally what my job is to do, is to read the contract for you guys and make sure that you're making a decision, that you are aware of everything. But sometimes it's crazy, but people don't read the contract. Anyways, the other thing I wanted to say was earnest money. Earnest money on a new home can be expensive. So expensive. So keep that in mind. Earnest money is like a security deposit for anyone that hasn't purchased a home before. It's basically saying, I'm going to fulfill my portion of this contract. If for some reason I back out when I'm not allowed to, that money is up for grabs. If I back out when I am allowed to, of course, I can receive that money back. In a new home, there's not a lot of opportunity to get your earnest money back. So keep that in mind. And another reason why it's super important to read the contract, because you probably will not be getting your earnest money back if you decide to not move forward anymore. But when it comes to actual costs of what that earnest money looks like, I would say anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 is going to be your average earnest money on a home that is like a spec home, for example. Granted, are there some that are a little bit lower? Of course. The whole reason I'm telling you this is because majority of my clients do have a home to sell in order to purchase, and most of them have that $5,000 to $10,000 wrapped up in that property as well. So how do you pay for the earnest money kind of situation? That's something to keep in mind. A few ways that I have had my clients figure this out in the past is going to be either, of course, they could borrow from a friend or a family. I don't think anyone necessarily wants to do that, but that's something to consider. Another way is going to be, I've had clients do like a monthly payment situation. So I think they had a $10,000 earnest money, or maybe it was $20,000. I can't remember on that one, but it was going to be like $5,000 one month, $5,000 next month, $5,000, or I think the third month was they had to pay the rest off once they closed on their current home for sale. So that made it a little bit more easy. I've had clients do the $2,500, one, payment the first month, and then the second month. I've had clients take out a home equity line of credit from their property that they currently own to do it on their new build. That was a large earnest money. That was going to be a dirt build, and it was a second home, so they charged even more, which was crazy. I think that one was 10%, so it was like almost $50K, which is just insane. Most people don't just have $50K lying around for earnest money specifically, so keep that in mind. These earnest monies are not for the light of heart. Typically with resale properties, you're looking at about 1%. So $4,000 on a $400,000 house, but they're definitely a little bit more negotiable. You're definitely not going to be putting no 50K down just to like start the deal on a resale home. So, there's caveats to that kind of stuff. Just keep it in mind. And again, that is why it's so important to read the contract, because we want to make sure that you are making some calculated risks. Buying a home is a risk. Of course, there's things that can go bad in certain situations, but that is again why I'm here to help you guys out through that process and make sure that that doesn't happen to you. All right, guys, so that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you feel more educated now that you've watched this video, and you feel like you can definitely make the right decision whether or not you decide to do a new home, or you do a resale home, or you buy a home in general, right? So hopefully you guys feel that way. If you do, hit the like button. It really helps out my channel and pushes my videos to more people looking to relocate. So I I really appreciate that. Again, subscribe. I post videos every Monday at 5 p.m. all about the relocation process, whether it be new homes, city tours, like literally anything and everything. I have either done it or I'm going to do it. If you guys have suggestions on videos you want to see, go ahead and comment those down below. And oh, one more thing. Don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter. A lot of you guys subscribed on my last video when I said that I was making an exclusive video just for the people that subscribe to the newsletter, but I don't think, maybe it was confusing. Anyways, you have to subscribe to the newsletter down below if you want exclusive access to that video. It's about selling and buying at the same time, specifically on the sell side in the state that whatever you live in. If you're coming from California or you're coming from Florida, it doesn't matter. This video will still be relevant to you. So again, subscribe to the newsletter and I will send that out on Wednesday if we can at least get 10 people to subscribe to the newsletter. So anyways, until next time, guys, I will see you later. Bye. To our newest listing on 158th Avenue.